secure any new government contracts while he is working on DOGE?
No, not if there's a conflict. If there's no conflict, I guess what difference does it make? But we won't let him do anything having to do with the conflict.
Are you personally checking to make sure there's no conflicts of interest?
Yeah, I am.
He answers to you.
Sure, he does. First of all, he wouldn't do it. And second of all, we're not going to let him do anything where there's a conflict of interest.
Well, 2 weeks later, and yes, apparently they are going to let him do it, even when there's a conflict. And even when what they're letting him do will impact everyone who flies. Elon Musk's Starlink is set to score a major government contract involving the FAA communication system. New reporting in the Washington Post details how the Federal Aviation Administration is close to canceling a $2.4 billion contract to overhaul a communication system that serves as the backbone of the nation's air traffic control system, and awarding the work to Elon Musk's Starlink. That's according to 2 people briefed on the plans. It would be an especially extraordinary step for the typically cautious FAA, whose systems are vital to the safety of millions of air travelers every single day. The existing contract was awarded to Verizon in 2023 with the aim of upgrading a platform that different air traffic control facilities and FAA offices use to communicate with one another. This, of course, is coming 2 months into a year filled with harrowing and deadly aviation accidents all across our country. Joining our conversation, host of the Bulwark podcast, MSNBC political analyst Tim Miller's here. John Heilman is still with us. I mean, John, if you stitch together, right, sort of the first 3 stories of the day, it's not just conflicts. It's conflicts with potential deadly consequences if things go sideways.
Right. I mean, Nicole, I swear, you and I are on some kind of telepathic wavelength, because I'm sitting here listening to, I've seen this story already about the grift here and the Starlink contract. And obviously, we've all seen these harrowing obviously the collision over National Airport, but the harrowing footage of the midair of the near miss at Midway yesterday. Everyone I know in America is freaking out right now about airline safety. And so here's the story of grift, in which the company that we're going to now we're going to privatize this piece of the FAA, and we're going to give it to the guys who missed Ebola when they were going through the funding, when they were doing their DOGE stuff, just decided that, sorry, we missed the Ebola thing. We'll go back and fix that. And as we just heard, it hasn't, of course, been fixed, because it's an example of the kind of indiscriminate, brainless chopping, hacking, and cutting that these guys are doing. Is there any company that you less trust with the safety of our airspace right now than the one run by the guy whose most brilliant people are running around the government missing Ebola when they make cuts to the public health infrastructure? I mean, it's not just outlandish and ludicrous. It would, in any other circumstance, in a fictional world, it would be hilarious. It would be the stuff of the highest satire. But here we are.
Yeah, and I mean, Tim Miller, the problem for Donald Trump is that Elon Musk has not displayed competence so far. I mean, the grassroots of the Republican Party, including the MAGA base, have their hair on fire. They're so angry about cuts that impact them in their ruby red districts. And now everyone and anyone that could get on an airplane, even super duper rich people who fly private, have to fly down the same air highways as the rest of us. It is usually the incompetence that explains most institutional failures, but it is also the thing that deprives the public of confidence when something like this happens, that's sort of layered on top of a grift, as John said.
Yeah. I'm just kind of listening to you guys talk about this. What strikes me is it just reminds us of all of Trump's businesses, right? That almost becomes an eye-rolly thing to say at this point, because we're in year 9 of this. But I do think, because we focus so much on the cruelty, like the extremism, and all of the other various issues associated with Trump and how he's degraded our politics. Sometimes I do feel like you kind of forget about that. Like, the most distinguished feature of him in his private sector life was all of his business failures, like all of his bankruptcies, his high-profile bankruptcies. I mean, everything that he ran was a disaster, like up to and like basically including his first campaign, really, which like won in spite of the fact that of their disorganization. And so, it isn't that surprising that we're going to see, this type of erratic behavior and that there's going to be consequences from it. Like the Elon Musk addition to it, just having him running around the government, like an animal that has gone rabid and like cutting things haphazardly and firing nuclear people and rehiring them. I mean, John mentioned Ebola, but it's like PEPFAR was ended and then brought back and then ended again. And people who have lost jobs that are essential workers, across the country, as you mentioned, Nicole, like there are Republican workers who are really upset, who are calling in to talk radio shows, writing into us, saying things like, I thought I was one of the good ones. I thought he was just going to go after those bad bureaucrats that don't work. So, I mean, it is a total cluster at this point. And I think that the corruption side of it, it just sort of adds another layer. But like the thing that's affecting people's lives mostly is just the incompetence of it all.